In this video, we want to derive the Black-Scholes equation in finance. It has an important role in finance. I will not really get into the details of the financial aspects of this equation. We want to focus on the mathematics and on the derivation of this equation. So the most important variables that we will consider are the following. So in particular, we start from S, which is the price of a certain stock. So S stands for stock, and it is the price of the stock. It is a function of time, so it depends on time because it can fluctuate. And the important part of the model is the following. So the increment ds, the increment in the price of this stock, is given by a certain parameter mu, which is the average price of the stock per unit price of the stock and per unit of time. So if we multiply this by the price of the stock and the increment in time, here we get the average price of the stock over a small amount of time dt. So this is something that does not contain any randomness. We have another part, indeed, which models the randomness of the stock price. In particular, this is related to Brownian motion. And the random part is given by a parameter sigma, which has to do with a certain standard deviation of a distribution, but it can be thought of as the volatility associated with the stock price. And this volatility is a parameter per unit price of the stock, so we have to multiply by S, and we also have to multiply this by a certain increment dw, where this increment here is the increment of a certain process w. This is a Wiener process, so the letter W stands for Wiener, and it can be thought of as a random variable which is distributed according to the continuous version of the random walk. So the continuous version of the random walk is the Wiener process. So it's really a random walk. You can think of this as a random walk. So the expected value of dw, if you want, is 0, because we are averaging over all the possible values of this small increment. And according to the theory of the Brownian motion, if we average, for example, the variable x, it's a certain displacement of a particle. So assume that we have a particle, and we average over a certain line. So it's as if the particle can move only left or right in this case, but this can be generalized also to 3 dimensions, 2 and 3 dimensions, but never mind. So the expected value, the expected displacement of the particle is 0, and then we have an expected value of x squared, which is proportional to the time variable t. So also in here we can say that the expected value of dw squared will be proportional to the small increment of time dt. And we can construct the variable w such that we can have an equal sign here. So the constant of proportionality will be just equal to 1. So these are the basic aspects of these variations of the stock price. Stock prices in general, we consider only one stock. And then we want to construct the portfolio. A portfolio pi. So this is the portfolio contains what we have. So let's assume that we have a certain amount delta of stocks. So delta times S will be the value of our portfolio. But now let's also assume that we want to purchase some options, and the price of the option will be V, and the price of the option depends on the underlying asset, which in this case is it's the stock. So the value of this option depends on the stock itself and also on time. And also remember that S is a function of time. So V will depend on time explicitly here, but might also depend on time implicitly because S depends on time itself. So if we purchase these options, we have to subtract V from delta S, and we do so in such a way that we want to counterbalance the possible negative effects that we might have due to certain fluctuations of the price of the stocks that are unexpected. And in this way, if we purchase certain options, and I won't get into the details of what an option is at the end of the day, I just want to model the thing mathematically, but these options will allow us to minimize the losses, and at the same time, they also minimize the possible benefits that we can get from it. So the possible earnings, the possible profits that we can have from this. So let's take this for granted, and we will see what this delta will have to be in such a way that we can minimize these losses, let's say losses. And here I want to consider the change in the value of the options. Remember that this is a function of S and this is a function of t. We can expand this in a Taylor series with respect to ds and dt, and we can write dv dt dt plus dv ds ds, and we can also have second order terms of the kind 1/2 d squared v ds squared ds squared, and then we can also have other terms that depend on time, like 1/2 d squared v dt squared dt squared, and then we also have terms that are proportional to dt ds. But we are going to neglect terms that are of higher order than dt from here. So this one can be neglected, and also terms of this order here, dt ds will be greater than the order of dt. If you think about the definition of ds, we have one term like this, so dt, when we multiply it by dt, we get dt squared. And then we also have dw, which multiplies dt. But since the expected value of dw squared is of the order of dt, well, if you think about it, dw dt will still be greater than the order of dt. So, I mean, this is something quite intuitive, and if you really want to get into the technicalities of the mathematics of the random processes, and in particular the Brownian motion, you might get into some sophisticated details that require some more technical mathematics, but in this case I don't want to get into the technical mathematics. I want to get into the intuitive significance and the intuitive notions of this theory. So we will truncate this series expansion here up to this point. And what I can do now is I want to replace this delta s squared. So I want to rewrite dv as dv dt dt, and then we also have plus dv ds. And this ds can be replaced by its definition, which is mu s dt plus sigma s dw plus 1/2 d squared v ds squared. And then we have ds squared. So ds squared will be the square of this, right? And we have to remember that we can neglect higher order terms. So when we square this, we get dt squared, and that term is negligible. So also when you get the term of the kind 2 mu s sigma s dt dw can be neglected according to what we said earlier. So we can also neglect this. And we are left only with sigma squared s squared dw squared, and we will replace dw squared by its expectation, which is dt. So we can also rewrite this by factoring the terms that multiply dt. So we have dv dt plus dv ds mu s plus 1/2 d squared v ds squared, sigma squared s squared, and all of them multiply dt. And then we are left with the term that multiplies dw. So we have dv ds sigma s dw like this. And then we want to really substitute the expression that we found for dv into the expression for the portfolio. And in particular, instead of writing down this expression here, I want to write the change in the portfolio as delta ds minus dv. So we really have to replace this dv that we have written like this. Now, we want to choose delta in such a way that we want to minimize the fluctuations. So first, we replace ds with this definition here. So we have delta mu s dt plus delta sigma s dw. Then we have minus, we have dv dt plus dv ds mu s plus 1/2 d squared v ds squared sigma squared s squared, which multiplies dt. Then we have minus dv ds sigma s, and then we have dw. Now you can see that the fluctuations are really given by the terms that multiply dw, because these fluctuations are modeled according to the Brownian motion, the Wiener process. So they are really given by these terms dw. And we want to minimize these fluctuations because we want to, let's say, reduce the possible risks that might ensue when we consider our portfolio. So the oscillations are those that we want to minimize, these Brownian motion oscillations. And we can do so if you take a look at it, if we choose delta as dv ds. So if we choose delta like this, you can see that this term will cancel this term here. And of course, we also have to replace this definition in here. So one last step is to rewrite the change in the portfolio by using the risk-free rate of change r. So we have r dt times pi. This is a definition of this rate of change, and it is due to the fact that our portfolio will have some kind of exponential variation, and this is how we define r. So if this were our differential equation, pi would be of the form pi 0 e to the rt. So you can see that r really models the evolution of our portfolio, and it is an exponential evolution. So we want our portfolio to increase its value, and you can see here that we are modeling that with this r. So we assume that r is given, and at this point we can equate this d pi to this d pi here. So we have dv over ds from here. So delta is dv over ds mu s dt minus dv over dt plus dv over ds mu s plus 1/2 d squared v over ds squared sigma squared s squared, and this also multiplies dt. And you can see, by the way, that we also have another term here and here that will cancel. So we can write the equation by simplifying by dt. So this dt will cancel this dt here, and by replacing pi with its definition, which is, if you recall, delta s minus v, but delta is equal to dv over ds times s minus v. So we can write it as r dv over ds times s minus rv, and then we can take these two terms to the left hand side, so we get plus dv over dt plus 1/2 d squared v over ds squared times sigma squared s squared equal to 0. And this is none other than the Black-Scholes equation.